And most definitely, each of our students, our 38,000 students, welcome you to their campus, their college this evening. And it's a remarkable opportunity for Clackamas Community College and a very humbling experience to be part and be your host this evening, and to be part of our Spirit Council, and also to have John Francis here to talk with us this evening. There are many things in life which we find fascinating about our journeys, and at Clackamas Community College, every year, so many people walk through our doors and have an opportunity to be here on campus to celebrate and to reflect on their own journeys. So if you would humor me for a moment, I'd love to know how many of you are here for the first time on your journey with Clackamas Community College. Wonderful. It's such a pleasure to have you here. I hope certainly your path will find you here again, and whether it be for another series similar to this, or for a class, or for a sculpture garden, or for a walk around our absolutely exquisite art and nature collections. So with that, I would like to introduce to you Milt, who is going to be our master of ceremony, so to speak, this evening. Wow. Thank you.
Wow, I didn't know I was going to be master of ceremony. Quite an honor. So I'm Milt Markowitz, and I'm Vice President of the Earth and Spirit Council, and I'm here representing the Earth and Spirit Council. Louder? Oh.
Closer. Let's just get closer.
This is, thank you. This is a lot easier. This event tonight is part of our annual Earth Day celebration, and which is, as you can tell, an Earth Week celebration, and it's part of what we do all year long is connect to the Earth and help other people connect to the Earth. So I would really like to thank Joanna and all of the folks at Clackamas Community College for hosting us tonight. It's wonderful to look out and see a lot of new faces. I'd like to just spend a moment talking to you about the Earth and Spirit Council, so you'll get a flavor for what we do. We bring in speakers on a regular basis. It's called the Natural Way Speaker Series. And so John Francis is our last speaker of this year. We honor all the people who honor the Earth. And it's very deep in our mission to bring these speakers front and center, because if we're ever going to be sustainable on the planet, we are all going to have to honor the Earth and appreciate life at its deepest level, and understand the possibilities of living in balance and harmony, and understanding what happens when we're not in balance and harmony with the Earth, and listening to the prophecies of those people who can think in terms of 7 generations. And so that is the basis of our work, is to bring about sustainability to the planet. And in addition to the speaker series, we have several education programs. We have one called Earth Arts, which works with younger children. There are a number of us who go to the schools when the speakers come. Sometimes they go, sometimes we take the drumming to the schools. And I worked in Winter Haven this morning. I teach living systems to the kids. And you would just be absolutely amazed to see how the kids really get in touch with life, and the recognition that living systems are very different than mechanical systems, and the gifts that all life is endowed with, so that life can flourish. And living systems really operate to a different science than most of the kids are getting every day. They don't follow all the rules of Newtonian physics. And just to share this with you, in this class, 5th graders, one of the kids, when we were talking about this, said, I don't think we really know what's real, do we? And to my surprise, a number of kids chimed in. They were all tuned into that. And one of the kids came up to me afterwards, he looks at me and says, "You think you know anything that's real?" So, a tough audience. But that's the kind of work that we do, and I mention that to you because we are a volunteer organization, and we are always looking for people to help with volunteer activities. So if you have good organizing capabilities, if you're an educator and want to get involved in this stuff, if you want fundraising, membership, got some accounting skills, whatever, we'll find a place for you. And is Anna Cooley here? Anna Cooley, are you in the back there? Would you stand up, please? So if any of you are interested, please see Anna Cooley. I think a number of you know her because she brought the volunteers for today's event. So what I would like to do is honor all of the people who helped bring about this event, all of the people from Earth and Spirit who were part of making this happen. I want to stand up.
Well, I don't want to stand up myself.
No, all of you, please stand up. Allison, Amber, everyone that had anything to do with it, and all the people from Clackamas College.
There they are.
There they are. And I would particularly like to thank Allison, who is both on the board of Earth and Spirit and on the faculty here at Clackamas Community College. She's the catalyzer of all of this, so thank you very much. Also like to thank the folks on the drum. Thank you very much. And I'd like to make one last announcement. I think people contributed, some people contributed when they came in, and I thank all of you for that. But I'd like to make another request, and I'll be up here at the end and we'll make the request again, and that is, if you're moved by the talk or the work that we do, and you're feeling generous, please feel free to contribute again. There'll be contribution baskets out on the tables when you leave. So thank you again, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce Kurt Beal. Kurt, if you come up. He is a naturopath and an Earth and Spirit volunteer, and he wants to talk about local organizations that are making a difference. Kurt, thank you.
Thanks everybody for coming, and also thank you to Earth and Spirit for putting this on this great event. Can y'all hear me? Yeah. There we go. Happy almost Earth Day. This time of year comes around, and a lot of people think about how we can get involved in our work, which right here is invested in making, or helping to make our mother as clean, healthy as possible for our lives, our children, and our families. And there's a lot of things that I'm sure many people are doing them already, both individual actions in your lives, as well as community organizational actions. A lot of times people think about how can I get involved, different groups, Greenpeace or Sierra Club or 350.org has been very popular lately, those things. I want to talk just really quickly about some things that are a little bit more local that are going on here in the Portland area, in Clackamas, in Oregon, that can help people get involved with that. There's a sheet at the back table, some of you may pick this up. This is, of course, by no means exhaustive. We're very blessed by where we live. There are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of organizations here that people can get involved with. This is just a list of some of them. Some of these are catalog resources where you can find other things. Just to list a few of them. Clackamas Community Water and Environmental Services. And here in Clackamas is a way people can get involved with cleaning up the river. Clackamas River is a beautiful resource, as most people know. How many people have been to the Clackamas River for recreation in the last year? For those of you that haven't, it's summer's coming up. Clackamas River is a beautiful place to go to spend some time. The CCWBS has got, they actually just won an award last year. I didn't know that. just won an award last year nationally for the work that they do for river cleanup. They have, for people with families, go bring their kids out, spend a day on the river cleaning up. It's a great thing to get involved with. Portland Metro, in the metro area, we got Metro Regional Government. It's a great resource for anybody that's wanting to get information. They run most of the recycling that goes on, all the composting that we have in Portland, and those spreading to some other communities. All these things you can find in Metro, OregonMetro.gov, it's a real simple website, lots of information there. The Northwest Earth Institute, they have a bunch of classes that people can go to. Sign up at Jen and Karen's taking Gene Roy. I've been doing this environmental work for close to 50 years, I think. 40 or 50 years, they're really invested in getting community organization for the environment out there in the hands of people. Really good part of people. They retired from very successful law careers about 20 years ago, I think, and now they work in volunteering or full-time and spread that message. So people that want to get involved with that can do that. Just two more. Oregon Environmental Council. Anybody heard of OEC? Very good. OEC is probably the group that I'm most familiar with in the healthcare work that I do, but OEC has done some really groundbreaking work, both statewide and even internationally. They set a couple of policies that other states follow in terms of how we can be more connected, how we can live cleaner, how we can clean up the environment, clean up our water, get toxins out of the waste stream. So looking at, for people that are following the bottle bill, looking at removing BPA, toxic chemicals from our water supply, things of that kind. And then also do a lot of work with policies. So going down to Salem for people that like writing letters. Who doesn't like writing letters? The legislative. OEC is a good organization for that. The Redirect Guide. For anybody that's seen this, is a good storehouse for local businesses that are support green initiatives, green businesses. This is the old guy who's hoping to go and pick up a bunch and give everybody a copy, but actually this is 2 days left until this is obsolete, their new edition that comes out right before Earth Day. So all the old ones are sold out. So when you're at your store, if you're at the market, you can go on the website, look for these. It'll be brand new in about 2 days. Lots of coupons and things in here about how you can live more in a green way. And there's a lot more on here. Feel free to pick one of these up. And everybody has a good Earth Day, living, trying to live, walk our talk and live more connected with the world around us. That's what I had to share. I hope you enjoy the rest of the speakers. Thanks.
Well, I have the honor and pleasure of introducing John Francis. I want to tell you a little bit about him. John was born in Philadelphia. He was the son of a West Indian immigrant. Many of you probably have heard the story. How many of you saw his TED Talk? How many of you seen that? Okay. So, you know that after witnessing an oil spill in San Francisco Bay in 1971, he stopped riding in motorized vehicles. I think he was going to stop for a day. That lasted for 22 years. I like this part of the story because it reminds me of myself. Because as he walked around on foot, he found himself, people would ask him, well, what are you doing walking everywhere? And he found himself arguing with people about what he was doing. And so he decided that he would do the world a favor and start and be quiet and be silent and quit arguing. I think he was going to do decided to stop speaking as a gift to his community for a day and start listening to what others had to say. And that lasted for 17 years. There was, I guess after 10 years, his mother began to get really anxious, so he didn't talk to his mother on his birthday after 10 years. But mostly he was silent and he walked and he played his banjo. During that time, he got his master's degree up in, he walked up to Montana, then he got his master's and went to Wisconsin and got his PhD. And he's walked all over, and he's going to tell you more about that. So, that's a kind of amazing story, isn't it? It's an amazing story. When I first heard this story, what it brought up for me is the idea of commitment. For many of us who follow the spiritual path that I'm on, commitment's kind of a big deal. You know, people go for 4 days and nights without food and water and dance, something called a sun dance. That takes commitment. My commitment has been taxed, as I'm sure yours has, when you think about your marriage, your work, your relationship to Mother Earth. You know, your commitment gets strained sometimes. And, but even though John is now talking, he's not going to come up here and do sign language all day. He didn't give up his commitment to the earth. Just the other couple months ago, he was leading a trek of students, a 6-day trek through the Midwest. So he continues to walk. He's founded an organization called Planetwalker, and as they say, the journey begins with a single step. Here's a quote from a student, I love this quote, who was on this recent walk. Together we are walking, meditating, and learning. We're all here for different reasons, but amidst all of the diversity, there are two things that resonate with all of us: John Francis and the environment that we walk for. We are following a prophet that is chasing the dream. So John, I'd like you to come up here, and I'd like John and for your ongoing commitment to Mother Earth. This blanket is called the Circle of Life, and it honors tribal elders or wisdom keepers who hand down teaching and spiritual direction to the children. It's a reminder that we are all children of the earth. We're all one big family, just like we talked about. Thank you for your commitment, your work, and I thank the Creator for bringing you to us. And now, the drum is going to sing an honor song for John and for all of us who are keeping our commitments to Mother Earth. So I'd like us all to stand. It's what you do when there's this honor song for John and for each of us.
Hey!
And now welcome John Francis.
Thank you for being here. Wow, that's I always start speaking thank you for being here because those are the first words I said after 17 years of not speaking. And I want to also thank the Spirit Council and Clackamas College, Community College, and the song that was, can you hear me? Are we? Everything's good? Oh, good. All right. And I just want to thank everyone for being here and part of this journey because as you saw in the video, I walked through Oregon. I came up into Portland and on my journey, and you're all part of that. I mean, I never could have imagined that I would be here this evening speaking to to you here. And so it's a very special time for me to be back in Oregon and here, and I have some friends in the audience as well that I have seen before. So I'm looking forward to spending some time with them too. But when I started speaking, and I said, thank you for being here, and I did it on the 20th anniversary of Earth Day, the 20th anniversary of Earth Day, 1990, in Washington, D.C. And the reason I did it is I wanted to remind myself that I was going to speak for the environment. That's very presumptuous. I was speaking for the environment. But that's what I wanted to do. I had learned about the environment. I mean, I stopped riding in cars because of oil spills and pollution. And I thought that was really what the environment was all about. Pollution and oil spills and loss of habitat. And it is. Those are important issues. But what I discovered walking across the United States and walking into many communities and listening to lots and lots of people, that what I discovered was that people are part of the environment. And I understood that. People said to me, John, people are part of the environment. And I heard that. And when I went to school, I learned that. But one thing I didn't seem to get was, if people were part of the environment, then how we treated each other was our first chance to treat the environment in a sustainable way. Or that's a new word, sustainability. So even to understand what sustainability or sustainable meant, we had to happen, that could happen only in our relationship with each other and with ourselves and with each other. And so after getting my PhD, I decided that, it's time to start speaking. And so I chose Earth Day. And I said thank you for being here because if nobody was here, what I learned about not speaking and listening, if nobody was here to listen, to receive a message, then there wouldn't be any communication. So that was the thank you for being here. When I said those words, my mother, all the mothers, please raise their hand. Okay. You'll get this. My mother, after not hearing me speak for 17 years, she jumped up out of her chair and she said, "Hallelujah, Johnny is talking." I was shocked. I just, oh, Mom. And my dad, fathers, are they here too? Oh, good. All right. My dad, he looked at me and he said, "That's one." Usually I like to let that, what that was one, what's that about? I usually like to let that go way back, but I forget sometimes to say what was two. And so people come, they ask me, well, okay, John, that was one, what was two? My dad, as you'll see, followed me across the United States, and he would always ask me, or always say to me, "What are you going to do with this kind of degree you got? You need to ride in cars and talk." Well, talking, that was one. I still didn't ride in cars. And so, now, when I said those words, "Thank you for being here," I hadn't heard myself speak in such a long time that I didn't recognize my voice. And so, because I didn't recognize my voice, I wondered who was saying what I was thinking. And so there I am, standing up in front of a large group of people, looking around to see who was behind me, because the voice seemed to be coming from behind me. Who was saying what I was thinking? And it was kind of upsetting there for a second, or two, or three, and then it dawned on me. That was me. That was me speaking, and I just didn't recognize my voice, and I thought that was really funny. And so I started to chuckle to myself. I was just laughing, and I hadn't laughed before. And that was funny too. And so one thing led to another, and I'm just kind of laughing up there on the stage. And my dad said, "Yeah, look at him. He really is crazy." He's up there laughing and giggling. Well, I want to tell you where this journey is going, because you never know when the time is going to run out. So that's part of why I'm doing what I'm doing, is because you never know when time's going to run out, and you only have right now. So this journey that I'm on is really our journey. So don't think of it as, boy, look at that crazy guy up there, he went walking. I'm one of you. I'm just one of you. So this is our journey. I didn't come from Mars. Well, not that I know of. And anyway, this is our journey. And so the journey that I'm on is really about the journey that we're all on, and how and where we're going if we're going to survive as who we are right now. Everybody gets to make a difference. Everybody. And I'm getting this from, and how do I know this? Where did this come from? Okay, I spent 22 years walking, and 17 years of those 22 years listening. And if you want to know what I learned, this is it. I'm here to say, this is it. I mean, I'm part of you. This is what I learned. You don't have to do this. Maybe not that long. 22 years ago. 17 years. People want me to teach their wives how to do this. I should, wives want me to teach their husbands how to do it too. And so I want to go back and tell a story, because that's what I do best, is tell stories. And you'll like this story. It's a fun story. Back in 1971, I was living in Marin County in California, and that's when I saw the oil spill. But I have to tell you a story that I was telling Linda earlier today about science and things that happen to you and life. And before this oil spill happened, I had come from Philadelphia, flew on an airplane on my birthday. A lot of things happened on my birthday. Came out to Philadelphia. There was an earthquake in Philadelphia on my birthday. I know, and I'm coming out to San Francisco. And I come out to I get out to Marin County. My friends had moved from Mill Valley up to Point Reyes. And I don't know how many of you have been to Point Reyes. It's really beautiful, natural. It wasn't even it wasn't even a park yet, a national seashore. And so I get out there, and I'm going, I've never seen trees so big. It was tall. I'm like, oh, this is amazing. And so one day I walk out to the beach, and it's raining. It starts raining, and it's cloudy, and the clouds separate. And that's the fog, right? And it separates, and I look and I see a herd of white deer. I'm not a dummy. I know the white deer are the sacred deer. I go, the sacred deer. Oh my God. Oh, and my heart is filled with, I can't even begin to tell you. I rush back to see my friends, and I say, I've seen the sacred deer. I'm blessed. They say, oh, Doc Ottinger imported those deer from India 12 years ago. I'm like going, oh. Okay. Well, I thought they were the sacred deer. That's all that was important for me at that time. So I do a lot of walking now. I'm not quite into the environment, although I hear a little bit about it, until something happens, and that's the oil spill. And what really impressed me about the oil spill, why I wanted to do something about it, is because of the birds. because of the birds. When I was a little kid in Philadelphia, I saw a robin fall out of a nest, and I wanted to take care of that robin. And I talked to my parents. I said, can I go get the... They said, oh, yeah, all right, go get the bird. And I went to get it, and just before I got there, a car ran over it. I cried for like 7 months. I mean, I still think about this bird that was like some 60 years ago. Still means something to me. And so the idea that birds were being harmed by the oil, that they had nothing and they could do nothing about, really touched me. And so I went to see the oil spill with my girlfriend, Jean. You see it, honey? No, I don't see it, John. Now, you may laugh. Jean really didn't talk that way. That's what we call a theatrical device, right? That's all it is. Jean said she didn't see it, but what happened, we smelled it. Because it was cloudy, it was foggy, probably the reason why the oil tanker collided with each other. 400,000 gallons of oil spilled into the bay. And that's when I decided I said to Jean, I said, we should start walking, right? We should get out of our car and start walking. And Jean said we couldn't do that because we didn't have, that's a sign I used a lot back in those days. We didn't have any, you know what that is? Let me hear it. That's right, we didn't have any money. And if we were just walking and we didn't have any money, people would see us walking and they would go, look at the poor people. They don't even have enough money to hitchhike. This was way before Forrest Gump, I'm telling you. Nobody was going to follow us. But if we had lots of money, people would say, look at the rich people. They're walking. Let's follow them. They must know something. So we just drove back home and we decided that we would wait until we had enough money that we could afford to walk, that we could afford to do what it was we thought we should be doing. But there was a knock on the door one day. No, really? Oh, that's terrible. That was Mrs. Shoemaker from up the street. She said that Jerry Tanner, the deputy sheriff, was lost in Tomales Bay. A long, narrow bay, shallow bay. He's a deputy sheriff. Now, I should tell you, Jerry wasn't my best friend. This was back in the 70s. And Jean had this stuff growing in her yard that Jerry was always looking for. Suffice it to say that we did inhale. But now we could even be president, right? That's another story. But Jerry was part of our community, and we had a community of about 350 people, so that means we knew everything about each other, and we really cared about each other, even if we didn't like one another. Kind of strange. And so we decided to pick some peas from our garden, give them to Mrs. Tanner, and we decided to go on a walk to celebrate Jerry's life. The Youngbloods were playing across in San Rafael, about 20 miles away, and we had to go over the mountain to do that, to get to see them, and we were going to go dance and celebrate his life. How many people here have heard of the Youngbloods? Ah, good, a nice old crowd here. And, come on, people, come, everybody get together, there you go, see? Now we have to stop there, and I can't sing anymore, else I have to pay residuals. But they were friends that lived in the community that we lived in. They were going to be playing over in San Rafael, so we decided to walk to see them and to celebrate Jerry's life. 20 miles away, cake, right? How many people here have walked 20 miles? This is Oregon, right? Clackamas County. I say that to some parents. How many people here have walked 20 miles? 10? 5? Okay. No, that's good. But 20 miles. We're going to go hear the music, dance. We left at 5 o'clock. Yeah, so we did miss the first show and the second show, and they were breaking up when we finally pulled into the Lion Share, which is the nightclub. And they said, John, Gene, oh my God, you guys walked all this way to come hear us. Oh, get in the, we'll drive you back. And we said, oh, no. We're going to rest up and we're going to walk back. So we slept out by a tree that night. And then we found I guess it was a Howard Johnson's or Holiday Inn. That's what it was. A Holiday Inn where we did the thing by the pool for a couple of days. Yeah. There's no need to suffer if you're going to walk. And we rested up. And on our way back, now this is, I guess, the important part for me, is that on my way back, we were talking with each other. And the native people there are the Miwoks. And of course, that was well, Gene, we walk, Miwok. I know it could be lost on different audiences, but I said to Gene, I said, Gene, Jerry, he was my age. He had a beautiful family. He had a house, a white picket fence. He was living the American dream, had a great job. Well, he was doing what he wanted. And just like that, he was gone. He was gone. And I really started thinking about that. And I started thinking about, we're waiting for money to come so we get to do what it is we think we should be doing. And there's no promise that the money's going to come. There's no promise that tomorrow is going to come. All we really have is right now. And I'm thinking, maybe we should keep walking. And Jean, she said to me with all the love in her arms when I said we should keep walking, bye. No, she wasn't that cold, but she did say that she felt that she should keep working to get that money so that we could really do what it is, the walking. And I just started walking. I kept walking. And it wasn't very long before people in the town heard that. So they would drive by and they'd drive and stop and they'd roll down that window and say, come on, John, get in the car. We're going over to Point Reyes. That's only 4 miles away. And I'm going, no, I'm going to walk. And then from that ensued the arguments of, well, why are you walking? And I would say, well, because of the environment. And what do you expect to do for the environment walking? And I didn't know. It just seemed like that's what I should do. And so I was arguing a point of something that I really didn't understand myself. And that's when I decided that, wow, this arguing is just getting a little bit too much. I really was feeling unhappy inside. Here I'm walking, I should be happy, it's a beautiful place. I'm calling my mom and my dad up. Mom, it's Johnny, yeah. Listen, I just wanted to tell you, I have stopped riding in cars. They're back in Philadelphia. No, I don't take buses or trains or planes. For the environment. The environment, Mom. It hasn't reached Philadelphia yet. The air, well, I guess I'd have to walk. It would take a while, yeah. My dad wants to know why I didn't do this when I was 16. I certainly didn't know about the environment then. No. But I'm really happy though, Mom. Okay. All right, bye. Mothers. My mother said if I was really happy, I wouldn't have to say so. Moms are like that. They say things, right? And so that was fine. I just decided to call my mom up, and then I decided that on my birthday I was going to not speak. But I only planned to do this for one day. If I had known I was not going to speak for 17 years, I might not have done that. The one day I stopped speaking, I started learning things right away. And the first thing I learned was that I hadn't been listening. I hadn't been listening to anyone. I thought I knew everything. I thought I knew what people were going to say, so I'd listen just enough to think that I knew what they were going to say, and I'd stop listening to them, which ended communication, and I'd start thinking about what I was going to say back to them to show them how smart I was, how I could say whatever they were going to say lots better, that they were wrong anyway. It was a very happy day and a very sad day when I learned this, because the sadness came from me because I realized I had missed so many opportunities to learn from what we were saying to each other. The happy part of that day was that, wow, I could not speak. I could just listen for another day, maybe a week. I'm not going to speak for a week. I lived in a little town, remember? Okay. I had stopped speaking for, it was 2 weeks now, and people started to get worried. And you have to imagine, suppose someone you knew stopped riding in cars, and then the next day they stopped speaking. Well, as I said, we didn't hail back in those days. And so what some of us thought was, well, John was just crazy. And some of us thought that, well, yeah, he's just on a trip. And some of us thought that, into the world, oh my God, it's a sign. And I don't know what I was thinking, except I had to write my mother and father and let them know I wasn't going to call anymore. That was airmail that I sent out. You see, we didn't have emails back in those days. And we didn't have those kind of phones that go like that either. My mom says, your dad will be out here. Yeah, my dad's going to be on the next plane. Back in Philadelphia, they think I've been taken over by a strange California religious cult. And I'm going to need deprogramming. My dad does come out. Gene picks him up at the airport, and he comes out, and they're driving up in a van. And in fact, I had just walked to Oregon for the first time, and I had walked back. And I was very full of the Great Spirit and the road and life. And I was learning how to play a banjo. I hadn't gotten very good at it yet. But I saw my dad drive up in a VW bus, and the door opened, and I was so happy to see him, and he was so happy to see me. He says, son, how are you? And I put my hand out, and I grabbed his hand, I touched his hand, and it felt so good. And he said, how are you? And I went, and he went, and Gene said, he's all right. I told you that he didn't talk. He says, I know. He says, get in the car. We're going to go to the hotel. He'll follow us, John. And so they drove off, and I walked behind them, and I got to the hotel. It's called the Botel then. My dad, after we were alone, he says to me, okay, we're here by ourselves. What's the scam? We were from Philadelphia, right? So I was very, I do a one-man show, and that's the end, that's the first scene was, or the first chapter, or what do you call those things? Act, that's the first act, is my dad looking at it going, what's the scam? The curtain comes down. There wasn't any scam. It was, I'm just not speaking, and I'm trying to tell my dad in sign language that this is a vowel, and he's going, no, write it down. So we were writing little slips of paper, and I wrote more little slips of paper to communicate with my father about what it was I was doing. And I think this is the first time that I could remember in a long time that we really sat down, and he really wanted to know, what are you doing? And I really wanted to be able to tell him that I really didn't know, but that this really felt like this is my journey, and that's what I had to do. He was on the phone outside, calling my mother saying, no, I think we should leave him here. No, he's healthy enough. He doesn't smoke. He doesn't drink. No, people seem to like him. I don't think this would work back in Philadelphia, no. So my dad went back to the East Coast of the country and left me there in California to my own devices, which had me walking up to Oregon every year in search of green spots on the map, because that's how I could tell there was a state forest or a wilderness area. And all the little green spots, I would look for green spots, and that's where I found the Kalmiopsis Wilderness, which is in the southeastern part of the state, western part of the state. Very wonderful place, and I spent a lot of time in the Kalmiopsis. I came out of the Kalmiopsis after coming up and back for maybe 4 or 5 times to go to school at Southern Oregon State College. And it was one of those things where I said, I tried to go to school before and it just never worked, and I want to finish school. They had a program there called the Prior Learning Experience Portfolio. I got to tell you this because they changed it after I left. You could get credit for all the things that you did in non-formal ways, non-formal education. You could write a portfolio. It cost you about $75 to learn how to write the portfolio and take this special class. And then you could get up to 2 years of credit for just writing all the things that you've done. It was for the returning student, and maybe you could get 9, 10 credits. That's what was thought. But I looked at that and I went, I have to tell you how I got there. I mean, I walked into the registrar's office. I didn't talk. I went, he said, you want to go to school here, right? You want to think. I had some newspaper clippings that showed him that I didn't talk, and he said, you could do that, and you have to visit every professor and let them know that this is not a trick to get out of work. And so I would do that, and I took the program called the Prior Learning Experience Program. Well, 2 years of study, 2 years of classwork I did while I was there, but then I got some credit for art because I painted every day. And I kept a journal, and I wrote and I published in magazines, so I got some credit for writing. And then there was the natural history of the Kalmiopsis Wilderness. Well, I lived in the wilderness for a year, so I wrote that all up. And then there was some physical education. Well, I walked back and forth, 500 miles, every summer, 1,000 miles, and well, that was worth 1 credit. But then there was the nonverbal communication series, which was 12 credits, right? And I wrote that up and I gave that to the professor, who looked at me and he just went. So in the end, I got 2 years of credit. 2 years of credit. And for $75, they changed that after I left, right? It's not very economical, not for them. It was great for me. And my dad came to see me graduate with some relatives, and this is when he started with the story of, what are you going to do with a bachelor's degree? You do not ride in cars and talk. and I would hunch my shoulders, grab my backpack, get my banjo, and I would move on to my next part of the journey. When I graduated from Southern Oregon, it was Southern Oregon State University, State College then, I had a long-term and short-term goal. Short-term goal was to graduate college. Long-term goal was to walk and sail around the planet as part of my education in the spirit and hope that I could be a benefit to all of us. No clue what that meant, but I figured I could learn on the way. And so I went back to the Bay Area and apprenticed as a wooden boat builder because I figured I was going to come to water parts. And there was only that other guy who could walk across the water. That wasn't me. It would always get deep as I went out. So I learned how to build wooden boats, and I founded Planetwalker, this nonprofit, which is about raising consciousness, environmental consciousness. And I took off on the journey. And I walked up the coast of California into Oregon, right through Portland, and then up into Port Townsend, where I was a wooden boat building community, and I built a wooden boat and rowed it across Puget Sound and sold it, and then put my backpack on and walked across the rest of Washington, Idaho, to Missoula, Montana. Now, here's a time thing. I had written to Missoula, the university there, about coming and studying environmental studies, because whenever you go visit schools, you'll see these little things hanging from the bulletin board, study environment in wherever, and business school at, and so I tore the one that said, study environment in Missoula, University of Montana. And I wrote them, and they said, well, you have to take your GRE, and you have to do this. And I did all that, and it was a big headache. I mean, I'll never do that again. And they said, well, when will you be here? And I said, 2 years. Because that's when I'm walking, and I should get there in about 2 years. And they wrote me back, and they said, okay, we'll be waiting for you. That's good, When I arrived 2 years later, they made me a resident because they said, well, you've been getting mail here for 2 years. So you're a resident and you get residential tuition, but they said, are you ready to go to school? And I went like this. They said, oh, you don't have any money. This is a very important story because it's about how we help each other. You don't have any money, come back tomorrow. That's what the director said, and I'll take care of it. I went back there, I was there 6 o'clock in the morning, and the director of the program, Tom Roy, gave me $150. He said, you go register for 1 credit. See, they had already figured out that part about the credits, So you could still graduate with prior learning, you just have to pay for each credit. That's the deal. So this was for 1 credit I was going to register, and it was going to be reading and conference and reading. So I was going to read something and be in the conference, and we'd write papers or whatever it was, and that was 1 credit. And he says, but now we can give you a key to the office. You can have an office here because you're matriculating. You can use the library. And this is what we figured out for you. You can take all the classes that you need. You don't have to register for them. You take the classes. They're going to keep your grade that you get. When you get enough money, when we figure out how to get you the money, then you register for those classes, and then they'll give you the grade that you got. This is a way, way advance of any financial aid I'd ever come in contact with. Which is what happened, and that's what I did, and I got to teach as well. As you saw, I got to be a TA. Not speaking, and I have to say, this is like the just craziest thing. My dad is coming again. I'm writing my family and saying, I'm getting a master's degree, and they go, what are you talking about? I've gone to school and I don't talk and I don't ride in cars. I'm getting a master's degree. In a year and a half, I get this degree. My dad shows up and he says, look, I don't want you to think that we're not proud of you, that we're not happy that you're doing what you're doing. But what are you going to do with a master's degree? You don't ride in cars and you don't talk. I hunched my shoulders, I put the backpack on again, I grabbed the banjo, and I started walking. I walked down through Montana into Idaho, across the Arco Desert, Idaho Falls, into Wyoming, through Yellowstone, into South Dakota, Watertown, South Dakota. I'm on my way to Madison, Wisconsin when a winter storm comes down, and I think, well, maybe I can make it to Minnesota, to Minneapolis, and then Canada drops another winter storm, and I'm just happy enough to live in a little place called Watertown, South Dakota. And I get a job as a printer, and I learned how to print, and I print my newsletter called the Planetwalker, which is the name of the book, and some of those newsletters are in that book. And while I'm there, I am befriended by the First Nation Native community because I walked across South Dakota in the Cheyenne River Indian Reservation and Eagle Butte and Faith. And as I'm working as a printer, one of the residents from Pine Ridge is working there as well. And we become great friends, and I tell him about my journey. And next thing I know, there's a powwow. We're having a powwow in Watertown, South Dakota. This is the first powwow ever held in Watertown, South Dakota. And his family comes up, they make this beautiful honor blanket. Gary Holybull comes down from Minnesota. The Phalango School sends up dancers from the Phalango School, the Indian dancers, and my dad comes out. And he sees everybody dancing. The whole community, this is Watertown. He goes, now, you got to tell me how you do this. You're a black man. You have walked into this community, and now the Indians and the white people are dancing. How do you do that? And of course, I didn't have any answer for him except that, just keep dancing, Dad. And I showed him a letter that came from the University of Wisconsin saying that they would like me to come to the university and that they could support me. And I showed it to my father because he read it and he said, looks like they're going to give you money. See, my dad would know that. So he said that, then I figured that's what it was. And so I left South Dakota and walked across Minnesota into Wisconsin and to the University of Wisconsin, and that was what happened. I got to be a fellow. They paid my way to go to the university there. And I did, and I wrote on oil spills because that's why I was walking. My colleague said to me, John, why are you writing on oil spills? What kind of job do you think you can get about oil spills, writing on oil spills? And I was happy that I was a fellow because I didn't have to pay back a big loan. And I could study whatever I wanted. And I was like, I'm not looking for a job. But then something happened as I finished my final exams. Just as I was finishing my final exams on oil spills, Exxon Valdez, who knew? And everybody wanted to know about oil spills. I didn't make this up, and I didn't plan it. There was one person in the United States studying oil spills at a PhD level. Yes, this is Admiral Henry, USS Coast Guard. Yes, we'd like to speak with John Francis. He's been cited on the oil. Pardon me? He doesn't speak? Oh, that's too bad. Well, we want to get him out here to Washington because He doesn't ride in cars. Is there somebody normal at your university that could speak to us? And so my major professor did and answered all the questions that needed to be answered. And my dad shows up again, right? Poor guy. He's looking around, he sees I live in this nice apartment kind of thing here because I got a fellowship. They're paying for all this stuff, and I got a bunch of keys on a chain. He likes that. Keys mean something to him. And he says, you know, my sister, that's my aunt, told me I shouldn't say anything. I should just let you alone because you seem to be doing so much better when you're not saying anything. He was right. I mean, that's the truth. But what are you going to do with a doctorate degree? A PhD, you know? I mean, what are you going to do with that if you don't ride cars and talk? And, I punched my shoulders, I put on my backpack, I got my banjo, and I continued walking until I got to the East Coast. And that was on Earth Day. I started speaking in Washington, D.C. And I said, thank you for being here. The reason I started talking, the reason I wanted to speak is because I thought I had something to say about environment. And it seemed as though we had a discussion that, okay, there's something to do, we have to do something, but we were trying to figure out exactly what it is. And the missing piece for me was being able to listen to all of you as I walked across the country and gain some wisdom from the words that were being said, and also by remaining in touch with the planet. Even though I flew here today, I still have like all these years of being on the planet. And what I learned was what I already told you, is that, it's how we treat each other. In Wisconsin, we talk about Aldo Leopold, for example, who is the father of conservation, and he says there's a land ethic, and I agree. There is a land ethic, but there's also a people ethic, and that's where, we have to do this all together. We can't do it with, we're just going to take care of the land and not think about each other. We can't just think about each other and not think about, where we live and our environment, our physical environment. And we're going to have to multitask and do it all at once as best we can. So that's my purpose for being here. That's why I'm thanking you for being here, because that's my message, is that everyone can right away start being in that community that we need to be in. Darwin said that it was the survival of the fittest, and he said that twice in his book, but what he said 96 times was this species that learns how to love and cooperate is the one that's going to survive. But I think Europe was at war at that time, and they chose, hey, survival of the fittest, that's going to fit with what we want to project right now. So I want to leave the love and the cooperation. That's what I want to leave with all of you here this evening. I did walk through South America. I walked the length of South America. And during my walk after walking to Brazil, I started using motorized vehicles again to fly back and forth, and I scared my parents because I thought they thought I was walking off and they'd never see me again. Ha ha, surprise! And so on Christmas Eve, I knocked on the door, and I told them my friend Fouad from Tunisia was coming to visit them, just so they would be home. And so I knocked on the door, and my dad says, "Oh my God, this is the happiest Christmas of my life," because I had come back from South America, and he knew that was number 2. My mother was upstairs, and he said to my mother, he says, "Well, somebody's here." And she goes, "Oh, is it Fouad?" And my dad said, "Yeah." And so I went upstairs, and my mother looked at me and she said, "Oh, Fouad, I'm so happy to see you." And she said, "When did you get in?" And I said, "Well, just a little while ago." And she kept looking at me in a kind of a strange way. And finally she said, "Fouad, you look a lot like our son Johnny." and then she was catching up. She caught up. And then she said, "You are our son Johnny." And I was ready to do everything all over again just to get to that moment where my mother would say that. She'd jump up and say hallelujah. She'd say, "You Fouad, you look like our son Johnny." And yeah, so I'm going to end this right now with finishing up the song that I was playing. It's a tune I played. It's called Life Celebration. And it's the first thing that I ever wrote, the music that I wrote. It's my soundtrack, I guess. Thank you for being here, and we're all making a difference. We can all make a difference. Thank you. Thank you so much.